The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Subspace mechanics, warp field theory, temporal causality, all governed by mathematics and reason. The United Federation of Planets was built on this foundation, exploring the cosmos with sensors and science, seeking to understand the infinite through observation and logic. But what happens when something appears that defies every tricorder reading, every established theory, every rational explanation? What happens when a warrior from a galaxy governed by mystical forces steps into a universe where such things cannot exist? Deep Space Nine hung at the edge of the Bajoran wormhole like a sentinel, its docking pylons extending into the darkness of space. The station had seen miracles and horrors in equal measure. The Prophet's timeless realm within the wormhole, the Dominion's ruthless expansion from the Gamma Quadrant, the grinding brutality of a war that tested everything the Federation claimed to believe. Captain Benjamin Sisko stood in ops, watching the tactical display with the weariness of a man who'd commanded through 2 years of unrelenting conflict. "Captain, the wormhole is opening," Lieutenant Commander Dax announced from the science station, her trill spots catching the blue light of her console. "But I'm not detecting any scheduled arrivals." "On screen," Sisko ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd learned to expect the unexpected. The view screen shifted to show the wormhole's familiar blue-white vortex blooming into existence, its interior a tunnel of impossible colors and geometries where linear time held no meaning. The prophets, entities the Bajorans worshipped as gods, beings who existed outside temporal causality, rarely intervened directly in the affairs of corporeal beings. When they did, reality itself seemed to bend. "Captain, I'm reading something coming through." Dax's fingers danced across her controls, her centuries of experience across multiple hosts unable to explain what her sensors detected. "It's not a ship. The mass is minimal, but the energy signature is. I've never seen anything like it. It's as if space itself is folding around a single point." "Shields up," Major Kira Nerys commanded from tactical, her Bajoran military instincts overriding everything else. "It could be a Dominion weapon." The wormhole pulsed, and something emerged. On the view screen, a figure tumbled through the void, humanoid armored, trailing what looked like discharge energy that sensors couldn't properly classify. For a moment, the figure simply drifted, seemingly unconscious, before its trajectory carried it toward the station's lower docking ring. "Sisko to transporter bay." The captain activated his comm badge. "Lock onto that individual and beam them directly to a holding cell. Security team, full alert." Chief Miles O'Brien's voice crackled back. "Sir, I'm having trouble getting a lock. There's some kind of interference. Not a transport inhibitor exactly, more like the person themselves is creating subspace distortions. It's scrambling the annular confinement beam. Keep trying, Chief." "Got it." O'Brien's triumph was short-lived. "Beaming now, but Captain, you're going to want to see this." 15 minutes later, Sisko stood before a force field in the station's primary holding cell, studying the unconscious figure on the other side. Dr. Julian Bashir knelt beside the stranger, running a medical tricorder with increasing frustration, while Odo, Deep Space Nine's changeling chief of security, observed with his usual suspicious intensity. The stranger was humanoid male, approximately 1.8 meters tall. He wore armor unlike anything in Starfleet's databases. Dark robes beneath plates of an unknown alloy, a mask that concealed his features completely. The mask itself was striking, reddish-purple metal with horizontal vision slits, following the contours of a human face but granting no glimpse of the person beneath. At his side lay a cylindrical device approximately 30 centimeters long, technology that made the tricorders emit confused chirps and whistles. "His physiology is mostly human," Bashir reported, his genetically enhanced mind processing data faster than the tricorder could display it. "But there are anomalies. His cells contain microscopic structures I can't identify. They're not organelles, not parasites, more like specialized cellular machinery. And his neural activity is extraordinary. His brain is generating subspace fields, Captain. Weak ones, but measurable. Is he dangerous? Sisko asked the question that mattered most. Unknown. Odo interjected, his voice carrying the liquid quality unique to his shape-shifting species. But anyone emerging from the wormhole during a war deserves extreme caution. The Dominion has tried infiltration before. He's not a changeling, Bashir said with certainty. His cellular structure is stable and consistent. But Captain, there's something else. That device at his side, the cylindrical object. I'm reading a plasma containment field inside it, but the energy readings are minimal. It's like a weapon in standby mode. Behind the mask, the stranger's eyes opened. Revan's consciousness returned like a tide, bringing with it fragmented memories and overwhelming disorientation. The last thing he remembered was the Starforge, the ancient Rakatan space station, infinite factory of the dark side, the weapon he'd discovered and claimed in his quest to save the Republic from the true Sith Empire. He'd been deep in its core, attempting to destroy what he'd once wielded, when the Force itself had seemed to fracture around him. Reality had torn like fabric, and he'd fallen through dimensions of light and darkness, through spaces where the Force screamed and spaces where it was utterly, terrifyingly silent. Now he lay on cold metal, his connection to the Force reduced to barely a whisper. He could feel it, faint, distant, like trying to hear through water. His Force senses, once capable of perceiving the entire battlefield, detecting deception, reading intent, now struggled to extend beyond his own body. He sat up slowly, his movements economical and controlled despite his disorientation. 3 figures stood beyond some kind of energy barrier. 2 humanoid males, one dark-skinned with a commanding presence, one younger with the bearing of a healer. The third was unusual. Humanoid shape, but something fundamentally different about him, as if his physical form was not entirely fixed. Where am I? Revan's voice emerged from his masked vocabulator, electronically filtered but carrying unmistakable authority. The dark-skinned man stepped forward. I'm Captain Benjamin Sisko of the United Federation of Planets. You're aboard Deep Space Nine, a space station in Bajoran space. You emerged from the Bajoran wormhole approximately 20 minutes ago. Can you tell me who you are and how you got here? Federation. Planets. Wormhole. None of these terms connected to anything in Revan's knowledge of the galaxy. This wasn't the Republic. This wasn't the Sith Empire. This wasn't even the unknown regions. My name is Revan, he said, choosing honesty as the most effective tactic when facing unknown variables. I was a general of the Galactic Republic. The last thing I remember, I was attempting to destroy a superweapon called the Starforge when reality itself seemed to collapse around me. He could feel their suspicion, even with his Force senses crippled. The shapeshifter, because that's what he was, Revan realized, some species capable of altering their physical form, radiated distrust like heat. The healer was curious, analytical. The captain was evaluating, measuring, deciding. You're claiming to be from another reality, Captain Sisko said carefully. That's a difficult claim to verify. And yet here I stand, Revan replied. He slowly reached for his lightsaber, watching all 3 tense immediately. Peace. I'm simply demonstrating. With deliberate slowness, he activated the weapon. The blade ignited with its characteristic snap hiss, burning brilliant purple, a blade forged from crystals attuned to both light and dark, a weapon that represented everything Revan had become. The plasma blade hummed with contained energy, casting violet light across the holding cell. All 3 observers stepped back, their shock evident. Incredible. The healer breathed. That's a plasma beam contained in a force field, but without any visible projector array. The magnetic containment is being generated somehow, but I can't detect the source. It violates half a dozen principles of physics. Revan deactivated the blade, returning it to his belt. Where I come from, this is called a lightsaber. A weapon of the Jedi Order, though I am no longer entirely Jedi. Captain, the shapeshifter said quietly. I recommend we contact Starfleet Command immediately. Whatever he is, wherever he's from, this is far beyond station security protocols. Before Sisko could respond, red alert klaxons screamed through the station. A voice crackled over the comm system. The female with the spotted pattern Revan had glimpsed in fragmented awareness during his arrival. Captain to Ops. 3 Jem'Hadar attack ships just came through the wormhole. They're heading straight for us. Sisko's expression hardened instantly, the weariness replaced by battle-ready focus. Battle stations. Major Kira, ready all weapons. Orange phaser beams lanced out from the station's weapons arrays, striking the lead Jem'Hadar ship. Its shields flared purple, absorbing the impact. Revan studied the tactical display, his strategic mind parsing the engagement even without the Force's tactical prescience. The enemy ships moved in coordinated attack patterns, focusing fire on specific shield quadrants to create weak points. Standard pack tactics. Their ships were lighter, faster, designed for overwhelming assault rather than sustained engagement. Their coordination is too precise, he observed aloud. They're sharing targeting data through some kind of battlefield network. Dax glanced up from her station. He's right. They're linked through their ship's computers, achieving near-instantaneous tactical updates. Can you disrupt it? Sisko asked Revan. Not with technology one don't understand, Revan admitted. But tactics transcend technology. Their formation has a weakness. They're maintaining exact spacing, which means they're following a predetermined pattern. Introduce chaos, and their coordination becomes a liability. He pointed at the tactical display. That debris field, bearing 347 Mark II, if you could vent plasma there and detonate it. Kira's eyes widened with understanding. It would force them to break formation or fly through the explosion. Either way, their pattern breaks. Do it, Sisko ordered. Chief, vent plasma from the lower docking ring into coordinates 347 Mark II. Kira commanded. Prepare photon torpedoes, proximity detonation. The tactical display showed plasma streaming from the station, creating a cloud of volatile gas in the path of the attacking ships. The Jem'Hadar vessels continued their approach, apparently not recognizing the danger. Fire torpedoes, Sisko commanded. 2 photon torpedoes. Weapons Revan didn't fully understand but recognized as powerful, streaked into the plasma cloud. The detonation was spectacular, a bloom of orange and white fire that expanded rapidly in the vacuum, flash heating the plasma into an expanding sphere of superheated gas. The Jem'Hadar ships scattered, their perfect formation breaking as they maneuvered to avoid the explosion. One wasn't fast enough, its shields collapsed under the thermal assault, and the ship itself began venting atmosphere. Target the damaged ship, Revan said. Destroy it quickly. Make the others understand there's a cost to this attack. Kira looked to Sisko, who nodded grimly. Phaser fire concentrated on the crippled vessel, and moments later, it erupted in a brief flash of annihilation. The 2 remaining Jem'Hadar ships turned sharply, accelerating away from the station and back toward the wormhole. They're retreating, Dax confirmed. Entering the wormhole now. Silence filled ops for a moment, broken only by the quiet beeps of consoles returning to standby status. Sisko turned to Revan, his expression unreadable. That was effective. Thank you. You hesitated before destroying that ship, Revan observed. Why? Because destroying enemy combatants isn't something we do lightly, Sisko replied. Every Jem'Hadar soldier is a sentient being, even if they're genetically engineered to fight. We don't celebrate killing them. Revan considered this, thinking of the Mandalorians he'd fought, the Sith he'd commanded, the Republic soldiers who'd followed him into darkness and back toward light. A noble sentiment, Captain. In my experience, wars aren't won by those who hesitate. Perhaps, Sisko said quietly. But they can be lost by those who forget why they're fighting in the first place. It was a philosophy Revan understood all too well. The same philosophy that had led him to fall to the dark side in the first place, convinced that ruthless action was necessary to save the Republic. The same philosophy he'd spent years trying to reconcile after his redemption. This universe, he realized, was going to challenge everything he thought he knew about war, sacrifice, and redemption. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The interrogation room was smaller than Ops, more intimate, designed to make subjects feel contained. Captain Sisko sat across from Revan, a PADD containing preliminary reports in his hands. Dr. Bashir stood nearby, his medical tricorder still occasionally scanning, still trying to make sense of readings that refused to conform to known biology. Odo had positioned himself by the door, not blocking it, but present, watchful. "Let's start with basics," Sisko said. "You claim to be from another reality. The prophets, entities within the wormhole, have demonstrated the ability to manipulate space and time. It's possible they brought you here, though I can't imagine why." "Prophets?" Revan leaned forward slightly. "The beings within that spatial anomaly are worshipped as gods." "By the Bajorans, yes," Kira interjected, entering the room with a tray of what appeared to be nutritional supplements. "The prophets exist outside linear time. They've protected Bajorans, guided us through centuries of hardship. If they brought you here, there's a reason." Revan accepted the offered sustenance, some kind of replicated meal, the technology again utterly foreign, and considered his words carefully. "In my galaxy, we have the Force. It's an energy field created by all living things, binding the universe together. Those sensitive to it can perceive the future, influence minds, move objects without touching them. The Jedi Order believed it had a will, a purpose. Like a religion," Bashir observed. "Like a fundamental force of nature that sometimes seems to have intent." Revan corrected. "I could once feel it everywhere, in everyone. Here it's—" He paused, struggling to articulate the terrible silence. "Absent. Or so diminished I can barely sense it. Yet some of my abilities remain, translated through principles I don't understand." "The subspace distortions," Dax said from the doorway, apparently unable to resist the scientific mystery. "Your neural activity generates measurable subspace fields. In our universe, subspace is a domain that exists parallel to normal space. We use it for faster-than-light communication and travel. If your Force abilities operate on similar principles, the translation might explain both why they work and why they're diminished." Revan absorbed this information, his tactical mind already adapting. Different universe, different rules, but perhaps not completely incompatible. "Show me your galactic maps. Your political structures. If I'm to be stranded here, I need to understand the battlefield." "This isn't a battlefield," Sisko said firmly. "Or rather, it shouldn't be. The Federation is built on principles of peaceful exploration and cooperation. Yet you're at war." "Yes," Sisko admitted, his voice heavy. "The Dominion forced that upon us. They're an empire from the Gamma Quadrant, the other side of the wormhole. Their founders are shapeshifters who believe only they can create order. Their military consists of Jem'Hadar soldiers, genetically engineered for combat and addicted to a drug that ensures loyalty, and Vorta administrators, clone beings who serve the founders with religious devotion." Revan nodded slowly. "A three-tiered system. The gods, the priests, and the soldiers. Effective if brutal. And your Federation? Over 150 member worlds." Kira explained, her pride evident. "Species working together, sharing knowledge, defending each other. No slavery, no conquest, no forced assimilation. We explore, we learn, we grow. The Prime Directive prohibits interference with less advanced civilizations," Sisko added. "We don't impose our values through force. We offer membership to those who choose it freely." Revan was silent for a moment, processing this. It sounded like the Republic at its best, the ideals that had driven him to defend it in the first place. But he'd learned through bitter experience that ideals alone didn't stop empires built on darkness. How long have you been fighting this war? He asked. 2 years, Sisko said. We've lost dozens of ships, thousands of lives. Entire worlds have fallen to Dominion occupation. And your strategy? Defensive holding actions, targeted strikes against supply lines, diplomatic efforts to build alliances, Sisko outlined. We're trying to win without becoming what we're fighting against. Revan heard the unspoken words, the doubt, the weariness, the question of whether such restraint was sustainable. He'd asked himself similar questions during the Mandalorian Wars, and the answers he'd found had led him down a path to darkness. Captain Sisko, he said carefully, I've commanded fleets, conquered star systems, built an empire. I've also destroyed one. I've been both savior and tyrant, Jedi and Sith. I know what it costs to win wars, and I know what it costs to win them the wrong way. Then you understand why we have to be careful, Sisko replied. I understand why you think you do, Revan corrected. But wars have their own logic, Captain. The longer they last, the more that logic erodes the principles you're trying to protect. Eventually, you'll face a choice, compromise your values or lose everything you're fighting to preserve. We've already made compromises, Sisko said quietly, and something in his voice spoke of personal experience, of lines already crossed. The question is where we stop compromising. Odo shifted uncomfortably. This is all very philosophical, but we have practical concerns. Starfleet Command will want to question you, Revan. They'll want to verify your story, assess whether you're a threat or a resource. That means transferring you to a more secure facility. No, Sisko said suddenly. He stays here. Captain? Odo's surprise was evident. He came through the wormhole, Sisko explained. The Prophet's domain. If they brought him here, then Deep Space Nine is where he belongs, at least until we understand why. He met Revan's masked gaze. You helped us today. You could have sabotaged our defenses, created chaos, escaped during the attack. You didn't. That earns you some trust, but not freedom. You'll remain on the station under security protocols. No access to sensitive systems without supervision. No weapons except under controlled circumstances. Agreed? Revan considered his options, which were limited. He was stranded in an unknown universe, his powers diminished, his knowledge of local technology minimal. Fighting would be counterproductive. Better to cooperate, learn, adapt, and decide later whether these people were allies or obstacles. Agreed, he said. But Captain, understand this, I'm a soldier. If your war comes to this station again, I won't stand aside. I'll fight, and I'll fight to win. As long as you fight by our rules, Sisko countered. Your rules may get people killed. Your rules, Sisko replied, his voice carrying hard-won wisdom, might cost us our souls. The two warriors regarded each other across the table, separated by universes and philosophies, but united in understanding the burden of command in wartime. Dr. Bashir will arrange quarters for you, Sisko finally said. We'll reconvene tomorrow to discuss your situation further. Dismissed. As Revan stood to leave, Kira approached him. The prophets work in mysterious ways, she said softly. But they always have a purpose. Maybe they brought you here to help us. Or maybe, her eyes held a hint of challenge, they brought you here to teach you something. Revan said nothing, but beneath his mask, he wondered if perhaps this entire universe was another test, another chance at redemption, or another opportunity to fall. Revan's quarters were Spartan but functional, a single room with a bed, a desk equipped with a computer terminal, a replicator that produced food and basic items through matter conversion technology, and a viewport showing the stars beyond. He stood before that viewport now, studying the unfamiliar constellations, feeling the profound isolation of being utterly, completely lost. 3 days had passed since his arrival. 3 days of interviews, medical scans, technical demonstrations, and careful observation of this station and its occupants. He'd learned much. The Federation's technology relied on principles fundamentally different from his galaxy. Warp drives that bent space rather than entering hyperspace, transporters that disassembled and reassembled matter at the molecular level, energy weapons that excited particles rather than using plasma containment. Their politics were equally foreign. The Federation prized cooperation and democracy to degrees that seemed almost naive. Yet they'd survived first contact with countless hostile species, built an alliance spanning light years, and maintained their principles through wars that would have shattered lesser civilizations. The door chimed. "Enter," Revan said, turning from the viewport. Chief Miles O'Brien stepped inside, carrying what appeared to be technical equipment. The engineer had been assigned to help Revan understand Federation technology, a task O'Brien approached with patient professionalism despite obvious reservations. "Brought you something," O'Brien said, setting down a modified PDD. "Figured if you're going to be stuck here, you should at least understand how things work. I've loaded tactical simulations, engineering databases, basic technical manuals. Nothing classified, but enough to get you oriented." "Thank you, Chief." Revan accepted the device. "Your willingness to trust me is noted." "I don't trust you," O'Brien said bluntly, his Irish accent thickening slightly. "But the captain does, and I trust him. Besides, after 20 years in Starfleet, I've learned that the universe is stranger than anyone imagines. A warrior from another reality. That's not even in the top 10 weirdest things I've encountered." Despite himself, Revan felt a flicker of amusement. What would be number one? Getting turned into a character in a child's imagination by an alien entity. O'Brien replied without hesitation. "That, or the time I lived an entire lifetime in prison in 20 minutes through a neural implant. Take your pick." The casual delivery of such extraordinary experiences reminded Revan that he was dealing with people who'd survived their own trials. These weren't sheltered idealists. They were veterans who'd chosen to maintain their principles despite seeing darkness. "I've been studying your war," Revan said, gesturing to the terminal where tactical reports scroll. The information Sisko had authorized him to access. "The Dominion's strategy is methodical. They're not trying to conquer everything at once. They're establishing footholds, securing supply lines, building infrastructure. This is a force planning for decades of occupation, not quick victory." O'Brien agreed grimly. "Which makes every battle feel like we're just delaying the inevitable." "Not inevitable," Revan countered. "Vulnerable. Long supply lines can be cut. Established footholds can become isolated. The Dominion is fighting a war of logistics as much as firepower. Disrupt their logistics, and their military advantage diminishes." "We've tried," O'Brien said. "Hit supply convoys, sabotaged outposts. But for every one we destroy, 2 more appear. And every attack we make costs ships people. Resources we can't easily replace." Revan recognized the strategic dilemma, the classic asymmetry between defender and aggressor. The Dominion could afford losses, the Federation couldn't. Unless something changed the calculus. "What if you didn't just disrupt their logistics?" Revan suggested. "But turn them into a liability? Make every convoy they send a potential trap. Every outpost a resource drain requiring defense. Force them to commit forces to protection rather than conquest." O'Brien studied him thoughtfully. "You've done this before. I've fought the Mandalorians, who conquered through overwhelming force and mobility," Revan explained. "I adapted by making every system they conquered a battlefield, every victory a Pyrrhic one. Eventually, they had to choose between overextension and retreat. And which did they choose? I killed their leader in single combat before they could choose," Revan admitted. "Sometimes, the most efficient solution is decapitation of command structure." O'Brien's expression darkened. "We don't assassinate leaders, Revan. That's not how the Federation operates." "Even when it would save thousands of lives?" "Even then. Because once you start justifying murder for the greater good, where does it stop?" O'Brien's voice carried conviction born of experience. I've seen what happens when people start making those calculations. Good people become monsters, and the cause they're fighting for gets lost in the blood. Before Revan could respond, the comm system activated. Senior staff to wardroom, Sisko's voice commanded. Immediately. Minutes later, Revan entered the wardroom alongside O'Brien to find the senior staff assembled. Sisko stood at the head of the table, his expression grim. Dax, Kira, Bashir, and Odo were already seated. A figure Revan hadn't seen before occupied the view screen, a Vulcan woman in Starfleet uniform, her features composed in the perfect emotional control of her species. This is Admiral Clara, Starfleet Command, Sisko introduced. Admiral Revan, the individual I reported. Fascinating, Clara said, her dark eyes studying Revan with scientific interest. Captain Sisko's reports indicate you possess abilities that violate several laws of physics and demonstrate tactical acumen that proved valuable in recent engagements. I do what I can, Admiral, Revan replied carefully. Starfleet intelligence has reviewed your case, Clara continued. The consensus is that you represent an unknown variable during wartime, potentially valuable, potentially dangerous. Captain Sisko has requested that you remain under his supervision on Deep Space Nine. I am inclined to approve this request, with conditions. Which are? Sisko asked. Revan will be granted limited autonomy as a civilian consultant to station operations, Clara outlined. He will not hold rank, will not command Federation personnel, and will submit to regular security reviews. Any tactical recommendations must be approved by Captain Sisko before implementation. His access to classified information will remain restricted. In exchange, he will be permitted to move freely aboard the station and participate in defensive operations as needed. Revan considered this. It was more freedom than he'd expected, but still constrained. And if I refuse? Then you will be transported to a secure facility on Earth for indefinite detention and study. Clara replied without emotion. Logical outcomes for a potential security risk during wartime. I accept your terms, Revan said. Cooperation remained the optimal strategy for now. Captain Sisko, Clara continued, there is another matter. A Federation convoy carrying medical supplies to Bajoran colonies will pass through the Badlands in 48 hours. Intelligence suggests the Dominion may attempt to intercept. I'm assigning Deep Space Nine to provide escort, and I'm authorizing you to utilize all available resources, including your new consultant. Understood, Admiral, Sisko acknowledged. After Clara's image disappeared, Sisko turned to his staff. You heard the Admiral. Major, coordinate with the convoy commander. Dax, plot the optimal route through the Badlands. O'Brien, I want the Defiant ready for deployment in 36 hours. Dismissed. As the others filed out, Sisko gestured for Revan to remain. When they were alone, the captain spoke quietly. This convoy is important. The supplies it's carrying will save lives in colonies still recovering from Cardassian occupation. We can't afford to lose it. You want me to help ensure it arrives safely. Revan surmised. I want your honest assessment. Sisko corrected. If the Dominion attacks with superior force, can we win without suffering unacceptable casualties? Revan appreciated the directness. That depends on many factors. The terrain, the enemy numbers, your ship's capabilities. But Captain, there's a question you should ask first. Are you willing to do what's necessary to win? That question keeps me up at night, Sisko admitted. Because I'm not sure I know the answer anymore. The USS Defiant cut through space like a blade, its compact hull bristling with weapons far beyond what a ship its size should carry. Revan stood on the bridge, observing the crew's practiced efficiency as they escorted the convoy of 3 Federation cargo vessels through the plasma storms of the Badlands. Maintaining position 300 kilometers ahead of the convoy, Ensign Nog reported from the helm, the young Ferengi's large ears twitching as he concentrated. Estimated time to rendezvous point, 42 minutes. Revan studied the tactical display with interest. The Badlands were a region of space where plasma storms and electromagnetic interference rendered sensors nearly useless, perfect terrain for ambush. In his galaxy, such regions were where pirates and smugglers thrived. Here, apparently, the same principle applied. The Dominion would be foolish not to attack here, he observed quietly to Sisko, who commanded from the central chair. Maximum chaos, minimum warning, civilian casualties to demoralize your people. That's why we're here, Sisko replied. Dax, any sign of Jem'Hadar's ships? Sensors are limited in these conditions, Dax reported from her station. But I'm reading increased pull-around radiation at bearing 047. Could be natural plasma discharge, or it could be cloaked ships venting drive plasma. Revan's diminished force senses suddenly prickled. Not the clear prescience he'd once commanded, but a warning nonetheless. Captain, they're already here. Waiting. You can sense them? Kira asked from tactical, skepticism evident. I can sense intent, Revan clarified. Predators waiting for prey to enter the kill zone. It's faint, but unmistakable. Sisko didn't dismiss the warning. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Dax, analyze that Polaron signature. If there are ships hiding in those plasma storms, I want to know before they know we know. The bridge lighting shifted to crimson as alert klaxons sounded. Revan felt the ship's systems surge to combat readiness, shields strengthening, weapons charging, crew taking positions with practiced precision. Captain, Dax's fingers danced across her console. I'm reading quantum fluctuations consistent with Dominion cloak technology. 6 ships, possibly more. They're positioned in a sphere around the convoy's projected path. A trap, O'Brien confirmed from engineering. Classic envelopment tactic. Once we're in the center, they decloak and fire from all sides. Sisko leaned forward, his jaw tight. Options. We could warn the convoy to turn back, Kira suggested. Find another route. Adding 3 days to the journey. Bashir interjected from his medical station. The colonies need those medical supplies now. People will die waiting. We could charge through. Nog offered hesitantly. The Defiant's tough enough to take the hits while the convoy escapes. Potentially suicidal, Odo noted. 6 Jem'Hadar attack ships focusing fire on us. Our shields won't last. All eyes turned to Revan. You want my tactical assessment? When Sisko nodded, Revan stepped to the tactical display. The trap assumes you'll react predictably, either retreat or advance directly. Both responses allow them to control the engagement. You need to introduce chaos. Elaborate, Sisko commanded. The plasma storms interfere with sensors for both sides, Revan explained. That interference is your weapon. If you can generate enough additional electromagnetic noise, you'll blind them completely while they're still cloaked. Force them to decloak prematurely to reacquire targeting, which sacrifices their ambush advantage. How do we generate that kind of interference? O'Brien asked, professional interest overriding skepticism. Revan pointed to the convoy ships. Those cargo vessels, what are they carrying besides medical supplies? Dax checked her readings. Primarily dermal regenerators, surgical equipment, vaccines. But the lead ship is also transporting industrial replicators and power cells for colony infrastructure. Power cells? Revan seized on that. Can they be overloaded to create an electromagnetic pulse? O'Brien's eyes widened. You want to detonate them? That's dangerous. If we miscalculate the yield, we could destroy the convoy ourselves. Can it be done safely? Sisko asked. Maybe, O'Brien admitted reluctantly. We need to beam the power cells into the plasma storms, set them to cascade overload at specific intervals. The plasma would amplify the effect, create massive EM interference across multiple frequencies. It'd be like setting off fireworks in a gasoline cloud. Do it, Sisko decided. But Chief, I want those calculations triple-checked. We don't sacrifice the convoy to save it. Aye, sir. As O'Brien worked frantically, Revan observed the crew's dynamics. They questioned, they debated, but ultimately they trusted their captain's judgment. It reminded him of his own command during the Mandalorian Wars, before darkness had twisted that trust into blind obedience. "Power cells ready for transport," O'Brien reported. "I've configured them to overload in sequence, creating rolling EM pulses. It'll blind sensors in a sphere approximately 2,000 kilometers in diameter for 90 seconds. Once we trigger this, we'll be blind too," Kira noted. "We won't be able to target the Jem'Hadar's ships when they decloak." "We won't need to," Revan said. "They'll be disoriented, trying to reacquire targets in the chaos. That's when the convoy runs at maximum speed along a predetermined vector. You fire weapons in a dispersal pattern, not aimed shots, but area saturation. Force them to evade, maintain defensive posture, give the convoy time to escape. Firing blind is inefficient," Dax observed. "We'll waste ammunition." "War is inefficient," Revan countered. "Victory isn't about perfect execution. It's about denying the enemy theirs." Sisko studied the tactical plot, weighing options. Finally, he nodded. "We proceed with Revan's plan. Dax, transmit new course headings to the convoy on encrypted channels. Tell them when the light show starts, they go to maximum warp and don't look back. Kira, prepare quantum torpedoes for dispersal pattern Sierra. Chief, on my mark, transport those power cells and trigger the cascade." The Defiant moved into position ahead of the convoy. Revan felt tension building on the bridge. The particular quality of silence before battle, when every crew member knew the next minutes would determine life or death. "Convoy acknowledging new orders," Dax reported. "They're ready." "Execute," Sisko commanded. O'Brien's fingers flew across his console. "Transporting now." On the view screen, points of light appeared in the roiling plasma storms, the power cells materializing in precise positions. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the first cell overloaded. The explosion was spectacular. White-hot energy erupted through the plasma, igniting it in a chain reaction that spread like wildfire. Secondary detonations followed in rapid succession, each one amplifying the electromagnetic chaos. The view screen went white, sensors screaming as they were overwhelmed by interference. "We're blind," Nog reported. "All sensors offline. Convoy is moving," Dax shouted over the noise. "They're at maximum warp, heading for the rendezvous point." "Jem'Hadar's ships decloaking." Kira's fingers moved by feel as much as sight. "Bearing unknown. I can't get a target lock." "Fire dispersal pattern," Sisko ordered. "All quantum torpedoes." The Defiant shuddered as its torpedo launchers unleashed a spread of warheads in multiple directions. On the static-filled view screen, brief flashes marked detonations, some hitting nothing, others finding targets. "Direct hit on at least 2 Jem'Hadar's ships," Kira reported. "Their Polaron signatures are spiking, shields are down." "Keep firing," Sisko commanded. "Phasers, full spread." Revan watched the organized chaos with professional appreciation. They couldn't see, couldn't target precisely, but they transformed a carefully planned ambush into a confused melee where either side had the advantage, except the convoy, which was already escaping. "Sensors coming back online," Dax announced. "The EM interference is dispersing." The view screen cleared to show 3 Jem'Hadar ships limping away, their hulls scarred by weapons fire. 2 others drifted, dark and lifeless. The 6th was nowhere to be seen. "The convoy?" Sisko asked urgently. "Clear of the Badlands," Dax reported, relief evident. "They're safe." The bridge erupted in controlled celebration, brief smiles, exhaled breaths, the particular satisfaction of surviving impossible odds. Sisko turned to Revan. "Thank you. That tactic saved lives today." "And destroyed 2 enemy ships while crippling 3 more," Revan added. "A successful engagement by any measure. At the cost of valuable power cells the colonies needed," Bashir noted quietly. The colonies needed the medical supplies more, Revan replied. Resources can be replaced. People can't. Spoken like a soldier, Odo observed, his tone unreadable. Because that's what I am, Revan said simply. A soldier trying to win a war you didn't want but can't afford to lose. As the Defiant turned toward Deep Space Nine, Revan understood that he'd proven his value. But he also understood the cost, each victory pulling these people further from their ideals, each compromise making the next one easier. He'd traveled that path before. He knew exactly where it led. The celebration in Quark's bar was subdued but genuine. The successful convoy escort had lifted spirits aboard Deep Space Nine, and off-duty crew members gathered to share drinks and stories. Revan sat alone at a corner table, observing the social dynamics with the same analytical attention he'd once applied to battlefield reconnaissance. A figure slid into the seat across from him, a human male in civilian clothing, unremarkable features, pleasant smile. Everything about him screamed ordinary, which immediately marked him as dangerous to Revan's trained perception. "Mind if I join you?" the man asked, though he'd already sat down. "You already have," Revan replied. "And you're not here for casual conversation." The man's smile widened slightly. "Perceptive. My name is Luther Sloan. I represent an organization interested in your unique talents." Section 31. Revan said, recognition clicking into place. He'd been studying Federation databases, including the fragmentary references to Starfleet's shadowy intelligence division, officially non-existent, unofficially responsible for countless covert operations. Sloane's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "You've done your homework. I've fought wars long enough to recognize the people who operate in the shadows," Revan said. "Every government has them, the ones who do what's necessary while the public faces remain clean." "An elegant summary," Sloane acknowledged. "Which is why I think we can speak frankly. You're a man who understands that survival sometimes requires difficult choices. The Federation is fighting for its existence against an enemy that doesn't share our compunctions about methods. We need every advantage. And you think I'm an advantage. I think you're a weapon," Sloane corrected. "One that Captain Sisko is too principled to use properly. Your tactics in the Badlands were effective, but they were restrained. Imagine what you could accomplish without those restraints." Revan had been offered similar propositions before, by Sith Lords promising unlimited power, by politicians seeking a general willing to cross lines others wouldn't. He'd accepted some, refused others, and the consequences of both choices still haunted him. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked. "Consultation," Sloane said smoothly. "You provide strategic assessments, tactical recommendations. We provide resources, intelligence, operational freedom. The Dominion has weaknesses. Leadership vulnerabilities, supply chain dependencies, political fractures. Weaknesses that could be exploited if someone were willing to act decisively. You want me to help you assassinate Dominion leaders?" Revan translated. "Sabotage their infrastructure. Conduct operations that Starfleet officially can't condone. I want you to help us win this war," Sloane replied. "Before the casualty count becomes unbearable. Before more worlds fall. Before the Federation is forced to compromise so completely that it ceases to be what it was." The argument was seductive because it was partially true. Revan had seen wars drag on for years because leaders refused to take decisive action. He'd also seen what happened when decisive action became atrocity. "I've walked your path before," Revan said quietly. "I convinced myself that ruthless efficiency was necessary. That the ends justified the means. I built an empire on that philosophy." "And?" Sloane prompted. "And I nearly destroyed everything I was trying to save," Revan finished. "I became the very thing I fought against. It took losing everything, my identity, my memories, my certainty, to understand the difference between necessary action and comfortable darkness." Sloane leaned back, studying him. "So you're refusing?" I'm saying that your organization exists because people like Captain Sisko can't do what you do and remain who they are. Revan explained. But you exist for them, not instead of them. The moment you start operating without their moral framework as a reference point, you become just another tyranny with better justifications. Philosophical, Sloane observed. But philosophy doesn't win wars. No, Revan agreed. But it determines whether the victory is worth the cost. Before Sloane could respond, alarms shrieked through the bar. Red alert lighting flooded the promenade as Sisko's voice echoed over the comm system. All senior staff to ops. We have a situation. Sloane stood smoothly. Think about my offer, Revan. When the bodies start piling up, when the Dominion pushes deeper into Federation space, when Captain Sisko has to make choices that haunt him, remember that there's another way. He disappeared into the crowd as Revan rushed toward ops. The command center was controlled chaos when Revan arrived. The view screen showed Vorta, one of the Dominion's cloned administrators, standing in what appeared to be a transmission studio. Repeat, this is not an attack, the Vorta was saying, her voice carrying the artificial pleasantness of her species. I am Kilana, diplomatic envoy of the Dominion. I request immediate audience with Captain Benjamin Sisko and the entity known as Revan. It's a trap, Kira said immediately. The Dominion doesn't do diplomacy, they do subjugation. They've done diplomacy before, Dax countered. Usually when they want something they can't take by force. What do they want with Revan? Odo asked, his shapeshifter's instinct for deception making him suspicious. Sisko turned to Revan. Any insights? In my experience, enemies request meetings for 3 reasons, Revan said. To negotiate from strength, to buy time, or because they've encountered something they don't understand and want intelligence on. Given that I'm an unknown variable in their calculations, I'd guess the third. Captain, Dax reported. I'm reading a single Dominion transport ship at the edge of sensor range. Minimal armament, no support vessels. If this is a trap, it's a subtle one. Sisko considered for a long moment. Kilana, this is Captain Sisko. I'll agree to a meeting under the following conditions. Your ship approaches no closer than 10,000 kilometers. You beam aboard alone, unarmed. The meeting takes place in a secured conference room with full security measures. Kilana's smile widened. Acceptable, Captain. The Founders appreciate reasonable beings. I will transport aboard within the hour. The transmission ended. I don't like this, O'Brien muttered. The Dominion wouldn't send a Vorta unless the Founders wanted something specific. Which is why we'll be careful, Sisko said. Odo, full security detail. Bashir, prepare to scan for biological weapons or hidden technology. Revan, you'll attend the meeting. Captain, is that wise? Kira protested. They specifically asked for him. That makes him either bait or target. Or asset, Revan said. They want to assess me, understand what I am and what I'm capable of. Denying them that meeting won't change their curiosity. It'll just force them to gather intelligence through more aggressive means. 53 minutes later, Kilana materialized on the transporter pad. She was petite, elegant, with the violet skin and white hair characteristic of Vorta. Her eyes held an unsettling combination of warmth and calculation. Captain Sisko, she greeted pleasantly. Thank you for your hospitality. And you must be Revan. Her gaze fixed on his masked face with undisguised fascination. The warrior who emerged from the wormhole. The Founders have taken great interest in you. I'm honored, Revan replied, his tone neutral. They moved to a conference room where security force fields hummed invisibly, where every word would be recorded, every gesture analyzed. Kilana sat gracefully, folding her hands on the table. I'll be direct, she said. The Founders wish to understand your nature. You possess abilities our science cannot explain. You fight with techniques unknown to this quadrant. You appeared through the Celestial Temple during a critical phase of the war. These facts suggest either remarkable coincidence or deliberate intervention. The universe is full of coincidences, Sisko said carefully. The founders don't believe in coincidence, Kilana replied. They believe in order, and the careful arrangement of variables to achieve desired outcomes. They wish to know, are you a variable they should eliminate, incorporate, or ignore? Those are my only options? Revan asked. In the Dominion's view, yes, Kilana confirmed. Chaos must be controlled, contained, or destroyed. You represent unprecedented chaos. And if I refuse all three categories? Kilana's smile never wavered. Then you become a problem requiring creative solutions. But I'm here to offer a fourth option, cooperation. Share your knowledge, your tactics, your abilities. In exchange, the Dominion offers you a position of honor in the new order. Your skills would be valued, your autonomy respected, within parameters. You're asking him to betray the Federation, Kira said sharply. I'm offering him clarity, Kilana corrected. The Federation fights for outdated ideals in a galaxy that doesn't reward idealism. The Dominion offers stability, order, purpose. Why cling to a losing cause when victory is available? Revan felt the weight of both offers, Section 31's shadowy pragmatism, the Dominion's authoritarian certainty. Both promised efficiency, both demanded compromise, both echoed choices he'd made before. I appreciate the offer, Revan said finally. But I've already seen what happens when order becomes tyranny. I've been the architect of that transformation. The scars I carry, visible and otherwise, remind me daily why I can't travel that path again. Kilana's expression didn't change, but something cold entered her eyes. A disappointing answer. The founders will be displeased. Then the founders and I will have to agree to disagree, Revan replied. That is not possible, Kilana said softly. The founders are gods. They do not agree to disagree with their creations. They reshape creation until it agrees with them. She stood gracefully. This meeting is concluded. Thank you for your time, Captain. I suspect we'll speak again under less pleasant circumstances. After Kilana transported away, Sisko turned to Revan. You just made an enemy of the Dominion's leadership. I've made worse enemies, Revan said. At least these ones are honest about their tyranny. The female changeling materialized in ops without warning, without transporter signature, without any of the technological tells that should have been impossible to bypass. One moment the command center was secure. The next, she stood in its center like a violation of reality itself. Alarms screamed. Phasers appeared in a dozen hands, all trained on the golden-skinned humanoid figure who regarded them with the serene contempt of a god observing insects. Fascinating, she said, her voice liquid and terrible. You point weapons at me as if such things could matter. How did you get aboard? Sisko demanded, his own phaser steady despite the impossibility before him. Our sensors should have detected. Your sensors detect matter and energy, the founder interrupted. I am either until I choose to be. I am the ocean that becomes the wave, the potential that becomes reality. Your technology is primitive children playing with blocks, trying to build walls against the tide. Revan studied her with intense focus, his diminished force senses detecting something profoundly wrong. This being wasn't simply shape-shifting, she was fundamentally mutable, existing in a state between definitions. In his galaxy, the Force permeated all living things. Here, this creature seemed to exist between states of life, a walking paradox. You're one of the founders, he said. The gods of the Dominion. Not a founder, she corrected, her form rippling slightly as if even maintaining humanoid shape required conscious effort. I am the founder who commands the Alpha Quadrant invasion. I am the will of the Great Link made manifest. And I am here because you, Revan, have become a variable requiring direct assessment. She moved toward him, and despite every instinct screaming danger, Revan held his ground. The founder circled him slowly, her golden eyes examining him from every angle. Kilana reported your refusal with disappointing predictability, she continued. But her assessment of your abilities was incomplete. I needed to see for myself what the wormhole disgorged into our theater of operations. Captain, Kira hissed, her phaser still trained on the Founder. Give the word and we'll. You'll do nothing, the Founder said without looking at her. Your weapons might disperse my form temporarily, but you cannot kill me. I would simply reform elsewhere, and you would have revealed the full extent of your defensive capabilities for no gain. Captain Sisko understands this. Don't you, Captain? Sisko's jaw tightened, but he lowered his phaser fractionally, not holstering it, but acknowledging the stalemate. What do you want? To understand? The Founder replied, still circling Revan. The Vorda are tools, useful but limited. The Jem'Hadar are weapons, effective but predictable. But you, Revan, you're something else. Your cellular structure contains elements our science cannot explain. Your neural activity generates subspace distortions through mechanisms we don't comprehend. You wield technology that violates known physical laws. She stopped directly in front of him. Tell me, in your galaxy, are there beings like us? Beings who transcend the limitations of fixed form? There are beings who transcend physical limitations. Revan answered carefully. The Force-sensitive can achieve states of existence beyond death. Ancient Sith Lords have bound their essence to objects, locations, even the Force itself. But they were all originally solid beings who evolved or transformed. Not beings who were always fluid. Intriguing, the Founder mused. And these Force-sensitive beings, they could manipulate reality through this Force? To varying degrees. Move objects, influence minds, perceive the future, alter probability. Yet here, in our universe, you struggle with even basic manifestations of these abilities. It wasn't a question. You're diminished, aren't you? Cut off from your source of power, forced to operate at a fraction of your capacity. Revan said nothing, which was answer enough. The Founder's smile was terrible to behold. Do you know what the Great Link is, Revan? It is the state where all changelings merge into a single ocean of shared consciousness. No secrets, no lies, no separation between self and other. Perfect unity, perfect understanding. When we join the link, we are not individuals pretending to cooperate. We are literally one being experiencing itself from infinite perspectives. She extended her hand, and it liquefied, becoming a golden tendril that moved like living water. In the link, I have access to the collective knowledge and experience of our entire species across millennia. Every scientific discovery, every tactical innovation, every moment of existence shared freely. That is true order. That is what the Dominion offers, unity through inevitable transformation. That's what you're really building, Revan realized. Not an empire of conquered worlds, but a galaxy forcibly united under your collective consciousness. Finally, someone who understands, the Founder said with what might have been genuine appreciation. The chaos of individual wills creates endless conflict. Free will is the source of suffering, war, disorder. By bringing all species into controlled hierarchy under the Founders, we end that chaos. The Vorda and Jem'Hadar are first steps. Species redesigned to serve without the burden of destructive independence. You mean without the gift of choice? Sisko interjected, his voice hard. You're talking about enslaving entire civilizations. We're talking about saving them from themselves. The Founder countered. How many billions have died in your Federation's wars? How many continue to die because you refuse to accept that order requires sacrifice of individual chaos? Better dead than slaves. Kira spat. Spoken like a Bajoran who spent decades under Cardassian occupation, the Founder observed. Yet you didn't choose death then, did you? You chose survival, resistance, hope for eventual freedom. The Dominion offers something better, peace through unity, purpose through service, immortality through incorporation into something greater than individual existence. She turned back to Revan. Which brings me to my offer. You're cut off from your force, struggling to adapt to a universe that operates on different principles. But what if you didn't have to struggle? What if you could tap into something far greater than mystical energy fields? Her form rippled, becoming translucent for a moment, revealing the true formlessness beneath. Join with me, Revan. Let me absorb your essence into the link. Your knowledge, your tactics, your experiences would be preserved perfectly. You would become part of something eternal, infinite, beyond the limitations of individual death or diminished power. The offer hung in the air like poison. Revan felt everyone's eyes on him, felt the terrible temptation of the proposal. To be whole again, to have access to power beyond his current limitations, to merge with something vast and ancient. I've heard similar offers before, he said quietly. The dark side of the Force promises unlimited power if you surrender yourself to it completely. Sith holocrons promise immortality if you bind your essence to them. Ancient spirits offer knowledge if you allow them to possess you. He stepped closer to the founder, close enough that her golden form reflected in his mask. They all have one thing in common: they require you to stop being yourself. To surrender the individual will, the capacity for growth and change, the very thing that makes existence meaningful. And that's your answer? The founder asked. Meaningless philosophy over practical immortality? That's my answer, Revan confirmed. I've already lost myself once, had my identity stripped away, my memories shattered, my certainty destroyed. It was the worst torture imaginable. But it was also what saved me, because it forced me to rebuild myself, to choose who I would become rather than accepting what I had been. I won't surrender that again. Not to your link, not to the dark side, not to anyone. The founder's expression hardened. Then you are a fool who chose extinction over transcendence. Perhaps, Revan acknowledged. But it's my choice. That's the difference between your order and their freedom. The atmosphere in Ops shifted, tension crackling like static electricity before a storm. The founder's form began to destabilize, anger disrupting her carefully maintained humanoid shape. Captain Sisko, she said coldly, I came here offering your warrior a path to survival and significance. He has refused with admirable conviction but terminal stupidity. The Dominion does not tolerate variables it cannot control. Is that a threat? Sisko asked. It is a statement of inevitable outcome, the founder replied. Revan has made himself a priority target. The resources I will dedicate to his elimination or capture will be substantial. Any who shelter him share his fate. She looked directly at Sisko. I know you value individual lives, Captain. I know you struggle with sending your people into danger for abstract principles. So I offer you a choice: surrender Revan to Dominion custody, and Deep Space Nine will be spared in the next offensive. Refuse, and this station becomes a primary military objective. How many lives is one mysterious warrior worth? The silence stretched. Finally Sisko spoke, his voice carrying absolute certainty. This station doesn't surrender people to tyranny. Not to the Cardassians, not to the Dominion, not to anyone. If you want Revan, you'll have to go through every officer on this station. The founder studied him for a long moment. How very Starfleet. Principles over pragmatism, even unto death. She turned to Revan one last time. You've chosen your side, warrior. I hope you find their inevitable defeat worth the loyalty. She liquefied, her form collapsing into golden fluid that flowed impossibly through the deck plating and vanished, leaving only the faintest shimmer of displaced molecules. Odo moved immediately to the spot where she disappeared, scanning with his tricorder. Gone. Completely. No transporter trace, no subspace distortion. She just left. Captain, Dax said urgently, we're receiving priority transmissions from Starfleet Command. Multiple Dominion fleets are mobilizing across the quadrant. Intelligence is predicting a major offensive within 72 hours. Kira looked at Revan. She wasn't bluffing. You just made this station a target. I know, Revan said quietly. I'm sorry. Don't be, Sisko replied. She would have attacked anyway. This war isn't about you. It's about everything we represent versus everything they demand. You just gave us advance warning of their plans. Captain, O'Brien interjected. If they're targeting the station specifically, we need to reinforce our defenses. Significantly. Agreed, Sisko said. All senior staff, reconvene in the wardroom in 1 hour. We have 72 hours to prepare for the battle of our lives. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Revan remained alone in ops for a moment, staring at the spot where the founder had vanished. He'd refused both Section 31's shadowy pragmatism and the Dominion's totalitarian unity. Now he would discover if his principles were wisdom or suicide. 61 hours remained before the projected Dominion assault. Deep Space Nine transformed into a fortress, shields reinforced, weapons systems upgraded, cargo bays converted to emergency medical facilities. Revan worked alongside the engineering teams, his tactical knowledge proving valuable even when filtered through unfamiliar technology. But something was wrong with him, and he knew it. The first episode struck while he was helping O'Brien recalibrate the phaser arrays. One moment he was running calculations, the next, his vision fragmented into overlapping images, the station's corridors bleeding into marble halls of the Jedi Temple, O'Brien's concerned face replaced by Malik's masked visage, the hum of machinery becoming the screams of dying worlds. Revan? Revan! O'Brien's voice pulled him back. You went completely still for 30 seconds. Are you all right? Fine. Revan lied, but his hands trembled slightly as he resumed work. Momentary disorientation. Except it wasn't fine. The visions continued over the next hours, fragmentary, invasive, growing stronger. He saw the Starforge burning. Saw himself in Sith armor commanding fleets while planets burned below. Saw Bastila's face, twisted in darkness. Saw the moment his identity was stripped away by the Jedi Council, rewritten, made into someone else. In his quarters that night, he removed his mask and stared at his reflection, a face he'd reclaimed but still felt foreign sometimes. The scars were invisible but permanent. He'd been Revan the Jedi, Darth Revan the Sith Lord, Revan the Redeemed. Each transformation had cost him pieces of himself. Now, cut off from the force that had always been his foundation, those pieces were fragmenting further. The force. That was the problem. He could feel it, not absent, but transformed. In this universe, it didn't flow through living things the way it should. Instead, it was translating. Becoming something else. His abilities worked by manipulating subspace rather than the force directly, and the translation was imperfect, unstable. Every time he used his diminished powers, the instability grew. Like forcing electricity through a circuit designed for water, it worked, but it damaged the system. He reached for the force now, deliberately, feeling how it manifested here. Telekinesis became subspace field manipulation. Telepathy became quantum entanglement of neural states. Precognition became probability matrix perception. All translations, all approximations, all wrong in subtle ways that were eating at his consciousness. A knock interrupted his meditation. Come, he called, replacing his mask. Ezri Dax entered, carrying a medical tricorder. The young Trill host carried centuries of memories from her symbiont's previous hosts, but she wore them with uncertainty still, her recent joining not yet fully integrated. Dr. Bashir asked me to check on you, she said. He's been monitoring your neural activity, and he's seeing patterns that concern him. Increasing instability, fluctuating energy emissions. He thinks whatever you're doing, your force abilities, might be damaging your brain. Possible, Revan acknowledged. The force doesn't exist here the way it does in my galaxy. Using it requires forcing incompatible universal constants to align. There's resistance. Dax scanned him, frowning at her readings. Your neural pathways are developing microlesions. Nothing critical yet, but if this continues... She looked up, her ancient eyes in a young face. Revan, if you keep using these abilities, you could cause permanent neurological damage. Possibly death. And if I don't use them when the Dominion attacks, other people will die. Revan replied. I've fought enough battles to know when I'm the strategic advantage. There's a difference between being strategic and being suicidal, Dax countered. Curzon, one of my previous hosts, was a stubborn old warrior who thought sacrifice was always the answer. It took him dying to realize that sometimes living to fight another day is smarter than dying heroically. Wisdom from experience, Revan said. I appreciate it. But I've already made my choice. Dax sighed. I can't stop you. But I'm reporting this to Captain Sisko. He should know what using you tactically is costing. After she left, Revan sat alone with his thoughts. He'd always known that redemption came with costs. He'd sacrificed his Sith power, his fleet, his empire. He'd submitted to the Jedi Council's mind wipe, accepting the loss of his very identity to stop the war he'd started. Compared to those prices, what was a little neurological damage? Except it wasn't just damage. The visions were getting worse, breaking through his mental discipline. He was seeing things that hadn't happened, alternate timelines, possible futures, echoes of paths not taken. The Prophet's realm within the wormhole existed beyond linear time. Had passing through it fractured his temporal perception? Or was this simply his mind breaking under the strain of operating in a universe hostile to his very nature? The comm system crackled. Revan, report to the wardroom. Senior staff meeting. He rose, steadied himself, and went to face whatever came next. The wardroom was tense when he arrived. Sisko stood before a tactical display showing Deep Space Nine surrounded by red indicators, projected Dominion fleet positions. Intelligence confirms it. Sisko began without preamble. The Dominion is committing 300 ships to this sector. Their objective is twofold: capture or destroy Deep Space Nine, and specifically capture or eliminate Revan. They're treating him as a strategic asset worth significant military expenditure. 300 ships, O'Brien repeated numbly. Captain, we can't possibly. We're not fighting alone, Sisko interrupted. Starfleet is sending reinforcements. Admiral Ross is personally leading a task force, 70 ships, including the Enterprise. They'll arrive in 36 hours. Still vastly outnumbered, Kira calculated. Even with the Defiant and the Enterprise, we're looking at a 4-to-1 disadvantage. Which is why we need to maximize every tactical advantage, Sisko said, looking directly at Revan. I need your honest assessment. Can we hold the station? Revan studied the display, his strategic mind parsing variables even as another vision flickered at the edge of his consciousness. Ships burning, the station breached, bodies floating in vacuum. He pushed it aside. Conventional defense? No, he said bluntly. 300 ships focusing on a fixed position will overwhelm any defensive capability. The station will fall within hours, possibly minutes. Then what do you recommend? Sisko asked. Don't defend conventionally, Revan replied. The Dominion expects you to fortify the station, concentrate your forces here, make a stand. Instead, make the station itself the weapon. Explain, Sisko commanded. Revan manipulated the tactical display, highlighting the station's power systems. Deep Space Nine was built by Cardassians as a mining station. It has massive reactors designed to power industrial operations. Those same reactors, if overloaded in a controlled cascade, could generate an energy pulse powerful enough to disable every ship within 10,000 kilometers. You want to turn the station into a bomb? O'Brien asked, horrified. A non-lethal weapon, Revan clarified. Not to destroy the Dominion fleet, but to disable their shields and weapons systems temporarily. Create a window where your 70 ships can engage 300 crippled vessels on more equal terms. And the station? Dax asked. Would it survive this pulse? 50-50. Revan admitted. The engineering parameters are complex. But Captain, you need to understand, the Dominion isn't here just to conquer a space station. They're here to demonstrate that protecting me costs more than I'm worth. They want the Federation to see that harboring me brings overwhelming force. They're making an example. Silence fell as the implication settled. If I left, Revan continued quietly, It might reduce their commitment. 70 ships against a smaller force becomes survivable. No, Sisko said immediately. We don't sacrifice people to appease tyrants. That's not who we are. Even when the alternative is mass casualties? Even then, Sisko confirmed. Because once you start making those calculations, trading lives for strategic advantage, you become what you're fighting against. I learned that lesson the hard way. Revan sensed there was a story there, some personal history that had taught Sisko the cost of compromise. Perhaps they weren't so different after all. Besides, Kira added, tactical value aside, you chose to stand with us. The Bajoran people understand loyalty. We don't abandon those who stand beside us. Touching, a familiar voice interrupted. Luther Sloane stepped from the shadows, literally, as if he'd been standing there unobserved the entire time. But misplaced. Captain, I've been authorized by the Federation Security Council to offer an alternative. Section 31 wasn't invited to this meeting, Sisko said coldly. Section 31 goes where it's needed, Sloane replied smoothly. And right now you need options. 300 Dominion ships represents nearly 15% of their Alpha Quadrant fleet commitment. That's an enormous expenditure of resources for one target. What if we gave them that target, but on our terms? Meaning? Revan asked, though he suspected the answer. Meaning we fake your death, Sloane explained. Stage a dramatic last stand, transport you off the station at the last moment with everyone believing you died heroically. The Dominion gets their victory, the Federation avoids catastrophic battle, and you get a new identity working for us. Everyone wins. Except truth. Bashir interjected, entering the wardroom with Odo. Except trust. Except every principle that separates us from them. Principles are luxury purchases, Doctor, Sloane replied. Sometimes you can't afford them. Another vision struck Revan, harder this time, overwhelming. He saw himself accepting Sloane's offer, saw the false death, saw years working in shadows becoming exactly what he'd rejected. Saw the slow corruption, the gradual erosion, until another identity was lost to expedience. But he also saw the alternative, saw the battle, saw ships dying, saw the station burning with thousands aboard. Saw his own death, as his damaged brain finally failed under the strain of using powers this universe couldn't support. Both futures were real. Both possible. Both terrible. Revan? Sisko's voice, concerned. You're bleeding. He touched his face beneath the mask, found wetness. Blood from his nose, his eyes, the neural damage manifesting physically. Make your decision, Captain, Sloane urged. Before the Dominion makes it for you. The visions intensified, fragmenting reality into overlapping possibilities. Revan saw the prophets in the wormhole, their nonlinear existence suddenly making terrible sense. They'd brought him here not as warrior or weapon, but as test, for himself, for Sisko, for everyone. Could a man who'd fallen to darkness, been redeemed, and lost everything maintain his principles when doing so might cost countless lives? Could a captain who'd committed terrible acts in war's name refuse to compromise when compromise might save his people? Could either of them choose correctly when all choices led to suffering? I know what I have to do, Revan said, his voice distant, consciousness fragmenting across timelines. I've always known. Since the moment I chose to fight the Mandalorians. Since I fell to the dark side. Since I was redeemed. The answer never changes, only the price. He stood, swaying slightly, the wardroom spinning around him. The Dominion comes for me. Let them come. Let them face what I faced when I thought power could solve everything. Let them learn that some things can't be conquered, only chosen. Revan, you're not making sense, Dax said urgently. Your neural readings are. Everything went white. Revan woke in the infirmary, restraints binding his wrists to the biobed. Dr. Bashir stood over him, medical instruments surrounding them both, a neural stabilizer attached to his temples. Welcome back, Bashir said quietly. You've been unconscious for 6 hours. Your brain experienced a catastrophic cascade failure, every neuron firing simultaneously. In a normal human, that would have been fatal. In you, it just... He gestured at the readings. Broke something we can't fully understand. The Force. Revan said, his voice hoarse. It's killing me here, isn't it? Slowly, yes. Bashir confirmed. Every time you use your abilities, you're forcing your neural pathways to bridge incompatible universal constants. It's like running electrical current through organic tissue. It works briefly, but causes cumulative damage. Another episode like that, and you'll suffer permanent brain death. How long? Revan asked. Until what? Until you can use your abilities again, or until they kill you. Bashir's genetically enhanced mind worked through variables at superhuman speed. If you never use them again, the damage might stabilize. You could live a normal lifespan, albeit without your powers. If you continue using them. He paused. Hours. Maybe less. Revan absorbed this information with the calm of someone who'd faced death many times. And the Dominion fleet? Arrives in 18 hours, Bashir said. Captain Sisko postponed any decisions until you woke. He wanted your input on the defense plan. My input may not be worth much without my abilities, Revan observed. Your tactical mind doesn't require the Force, Bashir countered. Though I've been authorized to tell you, the Prophets made contact with Captain Sisko 2 hours ago. They said, and I quote, "The linear warrior brought from another time carries echoes of paths not taken. His presence is not accident but confluence. Whether his existence helps or harms the linear beings depends on choices not yet made." Whatever that means. Revan understood perhaps better than the Prophets intended. They existed outside time, saw all possibilities simultaneously. To them, his arrival was both inevitability and choice, his fate both fixed and fluid. Remove the restraints, he said. I need to speak with Captain Sisko. The captain stood before the wormhole viewport in his office, hands clasped behind his back, watching the stable celestial phenomenon that housed gods. He didn't turn when Revan entered. The Prophets spoke to me about you, Sisko said. They rarely interfere directly, but they showed me possibilities. Timelines where you die heroically and the station falls anyway. Timelines where you survive and the Federation loses the war. Timelines where you flee and Section 31 uses your tactics to commit atrocities. They showed me that there are no clean choices here. There never are in war. Revan replied. Every choice carries cost. Every victory demands sacrifice. I've made terrible choices. Sisko continued, finally turning to face him. Years ago, I helped poison an entire planet's atmosphere to stop a Maquis leader. Violated every principle I claimed to uphold. I justified it as necessary, as preventing greater harm. But it haunts me. Every day, I wonder if there was another way I was too impatient or too afraid to find. And was there? Revan asked. I don't know, Sisko admitted. That's what tortures me. The uncertainty. The possibility that I committed atrocity for convenience rather than necessity. Captain, I've committed actual atrocities, Revan said. Not debatable moral compromises, but genuine war crimes in service of what I believed was the greater good. I led fleets that bombarded civilian populations. Converted Jedi to the dark side through torture and manipulation. Built an empire on fear and power. And when I was finally stopped, I had to live with the memories of everything I'd done. He stepped closer. So I can tell you with absolute certainty, there is no certainty. You'll never know if the alternative path would have worked. But I can tell you this, the fact that it haunts you means you haven't lost yourself. The moment those choices stop bothering you is the moment you've become what you're fighting against. Sisko was silent for a long moment. Dr. Bashir says using your abilities again will kill you. Probably. But you're going to anyway. If necessary, yes. Why? Sisko demanded. You don't owe us anything. You could take Sloane's offer, disappear into a new identity, survive this. Because I've already taken that offer once, Revan explained. When the Jedi Council erased my memories and gave me a new identity, I accepted it. Thought maybe I could be someone better, someone who hadn't made those terrible choices. But eventually I remembered. Eventually, I had to face what I'd been and decide what I would become. Running from yourself doesn't work. The past always catches up. You're saying this is redemption for you. I'm saying this is choosing. Revan corrected. The dark side is seductive because it offers power without responsibility. Do what's necessary, justify it however you want, but always preserve yourself. The light side, true light, demands you accept responsibility even when it costs everything, including your life. That's not tactical thinking, Sisko observed. That's martyrdom. No, Revan replied. Martyrdom is dying to make a point. Tactics is using every resource, including yourself, to achieve the mission objective. If my death means those 300 Dominion ships focus their resources on killing me rather than conquering the station, that's not martyrdom. That's operational efficiency. Spoken like a true soldier, Odo's voice came from the doorway. The shapeshifter flowed into the room, his expression unreadable. But soldiers follow orders. You don't have to sacrifice yourself. I also don't have to stand aside while others die protecting me, Revan countered. The female changeling made you a priority target specifically to force this choice, Odo argued. She knows the Federation values individual lives. By making you the objective, she's using your presence as a weapon against us. Every resource we commit to protecting you is a resource not used elsewhere. Which is why I have a different proposal, Revan said. Give me a ship. Something fast, expendable. I'll lead the Dominion fleet away from the station, make myself the prize they're chasing. Your 70 ships focus on defending Deep Space Nine without the overwhelming force concentration. I'll survive as long as I can, take as many of them with me as possible. Absolutely not, Sisko said immediately. That's suicide. It's tactics. It's tactics that requires your death. And your tactics require potentially thousands of deaths, Revan shot back. Captain, I respect your principles. I admire your commitment to preserving individual lives. But war doesn't care about our values. It demands we choose between bad options and worse ones. At least my proposal gives me agency in the choice. The comm system interrupted them. Captain Sisko to Ops. Urgent. They rushed to the command center to find Dax at her station, her expression grave. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting the Dominion fleet. They've arrived early, 6 hours ahead of schedule. The Starfleet reinforcements? Kira asked. Still 12 hours out, Dax reported. We're on our own. On the view screen, space itself seemed to darken as 300 Dominion ships emerged from warp in perfect formation, a fleet so vast it blotted out stars. Jem'Hadar attack ships, Cardassian cruisers operating under Dominion command, massive battleships that dwarfed anything the Federation fielded. They're holding position at extreme weapons range, Dax reported. No attack posture yet. They're waiting for something, O'Brien said. Or someone. The comm system crackled with a familiar voice, the female changeling's liquid tones carrying across the void. Captain Sisko. I've brought a fleet to demonstrate what defying the Dominion costs. But I am not unreasonable. Surrender the warrior Revan within 1 hour, and I will withdraw. Refuse, and I will reduce your station to debris with everyone aboard. You have 1 hour to decide which you value more, one life or thousands. The transmission ended. Silence filled Ops, the terrible silence of impossible choices and insufficient time. Captain, Kira said quietly, you know we'll fight. Whatever you decide, we're with you. I know, Sisko replied. Which is why this is so difficult. Revan stepped forward. Captain, the choice should be mine. I'm not Federation. I'm not under your command. I can surrender myself without you having to give the order. And I can refuse to let you. Sisko countered. You're on my station, under my protection. That makes you my responsibility. Benjamin. Dax said softly, using his first name in the gentle way she sometimes did, drawing on centuries of friendship across multiple lifetimes. Sometimes there are no good answers. But doing nothing is still a choice, and in this case, it's choosing to let thousands die rather than one. Jadzia is right. O'Brien added reluctantly. I hate it, but tactically, trading one life to save the station makes sense. Since when do we make decisions based purely on tactical sense? Bashir protested. We're supposed to be better than that. Better doesn't mean suicidal. Odo observed. The Dominion is offering us an exit. A terrible one, but an exit nonetheless. Revan watched Sisko's face, saw the captain wrestling with command's loneliest burden, the final decision that only he could make, that would define him forever regardless of outcome. I've made my decision, Sisko finally said, his voice carrying absolute authority. We don't negotiate with the Dominion. We don't surrender anyone under our protection. If they want Revan, they'll have to come through every weapon, every shield, every person on this station. Captain, Revan began. I'm not finished, Sisko interrupted. Revan, you're right that you have agency in this choice. If you want to surrender yourself, I won't stop you. But I also won't order it, won't suggest it, won't make you feel obligated. The choice is yours, and whatever you decide, this station will support. The weight of that choice settled on Revan's shoulders like a physical thing. Surrender and live, possibly, under Dominion control. Fight and die, certainly, from neural collapse. Run and survive, but become Section 31's weapon. Or something else. Something the prophets might have foreseen, that the founders couldn't predict, that even he hadn't considered. I have an idea, Revan said slowly, the plan forming even as he spoke. It's dangerous, unprecedented, and requires technology one barely understands. But if it works, we might not have to choose between surrender and slaughter. I'm listening, Sisko said. The Dominion wants me because I'm an unknown variable, Revan explained. A warrior with abilities they can't explain, tactics they can't predict, knowledge from a completely different universe. But what if I wasn't the only one? He gestured to the wormhole visible through the viewport. The prophets exist beyond linear time. They brought me here, presumably for a reason. What if that reason wasn't just to die heroically or surrender meekly, but to teach the Dominion that there are forces in this universe they can't control or comprehend? You want to contact the prophets, Dax realized. Ask them for help. More than that, Revan said. I want to go into the wormhole. Into their realm. If my neural activity generates subspace distortions that they found interesting enough to pull me through in the first place, maybe I can communicate with them directly. Maybe I can convince them that the Dominion represents exactly the kind of rigid, linear thinking they oppose. That's insane, O'Brien said. The wormhole isn't stable for organic matter. You'd be torn apart by gravitational shear. Unless the prophets protect him, Bashir said thoughtfully. They've done it before with Captain Sisko. If they want to, they can maintain stability. And if they don't want to? Kira asked. Then I'd die trying, Revan replied. Which is probably what happens anyway if we fight conventionally. At least this way, I'm attempting something that might actually change the situation. Sisko studied him for a long moment. You realize this is probably suicide. I've been living on borrowed time since I arrived here, Revan said. Might as well spend it attempting the impossible. The runabout Rio Grande slipped away from Deep Space Nine's docking bay, a small vessel bearing a single occupant toward the Celestial Temple. Revan sat at the helm, his hands steady despite knowing what he was about to attempt, his mind already fragmenting under the neural strain of simply existing in this universe. Revan, you still have 40 minutes to reconsider. Sisko's voice crackled over the comm. The Dominion hasn't moved yet. We can bring you back. No, Captain, Revan replied, guiding the runabout toward the wormhole's stable entrance point. This is the only way forward that doesn't require surrender or slaughter. Trust me, I've tried every other option in my own galaxy. Sometimes the only path is through the impossible. On Deep Space Nine's view screen, the massive Dominion fleet held position, 300 ships waiting with predatory patience. The Female Changeling had given them 1 hour. Only 20 minutes remained. All ships maintain battle stations, Sisko commanded his crew. If this doesn't work, we fight. Dax, status on Starfleet reinforcements? Still 10 hours out, Dax reported grimly. We're on our own. Revan brought the runabout to a halt at the wormhole's threshold. Through the viewport, the stable phenomenon pulsed with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space, blues and whites that suggested dimensions beyond human perception. The Prophet's realm. A place where past, present, and future existed simultaneously. He closed his eyes, reaching for the Force one final time. Pain lanced through his skull immediately, neurons firing in patterns this universe wasn't designed to support, subspace distortions cascading through his dying neural pathways. But he pushed through the agony, using the pain itself as a beacon, letting his fractured consciousness generate the massive subspace disruption that had caught the Prophet's attention in the first place. The wormhole responded. It bloomed open before him, a tunnel of impossible geometry and nonlinear time, and the runabout was pulled inside like a leaf in a hurricane. Reality shattered. Revan found himself standing in a place that was every place and no place, the Rio Grande's cockpit overlapping with marble halls of the Jedi Temple, with the bridge of his flagship during the Mandalorian Wars, with darkness and light swirling in impossible configurations. The prophets manifested around him, wearing familiar faces. His mother, Malak, Bastila, Sisko, people he'd known and people he'd destroyed. The linear warrior, they said in unison, their voices echoing from multiple timelines. You exist in our temple but remain bound to linearity. Contradiction. Paradox. Why? Because I need to understand, Revan said, his voice his own but also not, echoing across time. You brought me here. Through the wormhole, across universes, into a reality where I don't belong. Why? We did not bring you, the prophets replied through Malak's face. You brought yourself. Your war machine, the Star Forge, tore reality. You fell through the wound. Then why did you let me through? Revan demanded. Why catch me instead of letting me dissolve into quantum foam? The prophets shifted, now wearing Sisko's face, now his own face beneath the mask. Because you are proof of our truth. That the Dominion's order is false. That existence cannot be controlled, only experienced. That even across universes, choice matters more than inevitability. Revan understood then, truly understood. The prophets weren't helping him out of benevolence. They were using him as a weapon against the Dominion's philosophy, a living argument that reality resisted control. The founders believe they can impose order on chaos. He said. You want to prove them wrong. We want to prove nothing. The prophets corrected through Bastila's voice. We exist. The founders exist. Both truths coexist. But the founders threaten our Bajorans, our linear beings, our temple's stability. This aggression requires response. Then help me. Revan pleaded. 300 ships wait to destroy everyone who sheltered me. I can't fight them. My body is failing, my power is dying. But if you give me strength, if you stabilize my connection to whatever the Force has become in this universe, I can be your response. The prophets were silent, their manifested forms flickering through dozens of faces, processing his request across infinite timelines simultaneously. We cannot give what you ask, they finally said. The Force is your universe's dream. This universe dreams differently. To fully restore your power would destroy you completely. Then I'll use what time I have, Revan said. Hours, minutes, seconds, it doesn't matter. Just stabilize me long enough to face the Dominion fleet. Let me be the chaos that disrupts their order. You would sacrifice yourself for linear beings you barely know. The prophets observed. This defies tactical logic. It's the only logic that matters. Revan replied. I spent years trying to save my galaxy through power and control. It failed. I became the threat I was trying to stop. But I learned something through losing everything. Redemption isn't about grand victories. It's about choosing, moment by moment, to be better than you were. Even when it costs everything. The prophets shifted again, all wearing his face now. Young Jedi, Sith Lord, redeemed warrior, possible futures and lost pasts. We will grant your request, they said. But understand, we cannot extend your existence beyond what your form can sustain. You will burn bright and brief, a supernova against the Dominion's cold order. Is this acceptable? It has to be, Revan said. Then receive our gift, linear warrior. Become for moments what you were always meant to be, the bridge between order and chaos, light and dark, your universe and ours. Power flooded through him, not the Force as he'd known it, but something stranger, vaster. The prophet's non-linear existence touching his consciousness, his dying neural pathways suddenly supported by beings who existed outside time's flow. His abilities didn't just return, they transformed. He could feel the Dominion fleet across space, feel their rigid formation and predetermined tactics. Could sense the female changeling's cold calculation, the Jem'Hadar's drug-induced loyalty, the Vorta's clone devotion. Could perceive probabilities and possibilities spreading before him like a map. And he could feel his body burning, every cell consuming itself to channel power it wasn't designed to hold. The prophets had given him strength, but at a cost measured in heartbeats. Thank you, he whispered. The wormhole expelled him back into normal space, the Rio Grande emerging in a blaze of exotic particles and temporal radiation. On Deep Space Nine, every sensor screamed warnings about impossible energy readings. Captain? Dax shouted. The runabout's generating a subspace field that's off every scale. It's like the wormhole itself is following Revan. On the view screen, the Rio Grande hung in space surrounded by an aura of blue-white energy. The prophet's gift made visible, nonlinear existence bleeding into linear reality. The Dominion fleet responded instantly. All 300 ships activated weapons, targeting solutions converging on the impossible phenomenon Revan had become. All ships, the female changeling's voice commanded across Dominion channels. Fire! Destroy the anomaly! Energy lanced across space. Polaron beams, quantum torpedoes, disruptor fire from 300 warships focusing their firepower on a single target. Revan didn't evade. He reached out with his transformed abilities, with the prophet's non-linear perception flowing through his dying consciousness, and stopped the weapons. Every beam, every torpedo, every destructive force froze in space as if time itself had paused. The Dominion fleet watched in shock as their weapons hung motionless, suspended in probability states that shouldn't exist in normal space. Then Revan released them, and they turned. 300 ships worth of weapons fire reversed trajectory, redirected through subspace manipulation and probability rewriting, streaking back toward the vessels that had fired them. The Dominion fleet scattered, shields raised desperately, ships maneuvering frantically to avoid their own firepower. Chaos erupted through the formation. Ships collided in their desperation to evade. Shields failed under impacts from their own weapons. The perfect geometric formation dissolved into confused retreat. Impossible! The female changeling's voice screamed. No solid can manipulate reality itself. I'm not manipulating reality. Revan transmitted, his voice carrying across all frequencies, powered by forces beyond technology. I'm just introducing it to something it's never encountered. Proof that your order is an illusion, that control is temporary, that chaos is the universe's natural state. He guided the Rio Grande directly toward the Dominion flagship, a massive battleship at the fleet's center. Jem'Hadar attack ships moved to intercept, but he reached into their systems. His consciousness flowing through subspace, his abilities translating into quantum manipulation, and shut them down. Engines offline. Weapons disabled. Life support maintained but every aggressive system neutralized. Captain Sisko. He transmitted back to the station, his voice already showing strain. I can hold them. Not forever, minutes at most. But long enough for your reinforcements to arrive. Long enough to show the Dominion that they can't control everything. Revan, your biosigns are deteriorating. Bashir's voice carried medical urgency. Whatever you're doing is killing you faster than projected. I know, Revan replied calmly. This is what I chose. He reached the Dominion flagship, and with effort that felt like tearing his soul apart, he transported himself directly onto their bridge. The female changeling stood at its center, surrounded by Jem'Hadar guards and Vorta administrators, all staring at the masked warrior who'd materialized impossibly aboard their most secure vessel. You, she hissed, her form destabilizing with rage. You violate every law of physics, every principle of order. No, Revan replied, removing his mask for the first time since arriving in this universe. Blood ran from his eyes, his nose, his ears, his brain literally consuming itself to channel power it couldn't sustain. I'm just reminding you that the universe is bigger and stranger than your need for control. Kill him, the changeling commanded. The Jem'Hadar raised their weapons, but Revan was faster. He reached into their minds. Not with force persuasion but with quantum entanglement of neural states, a telepathy that operated on principles the Dominion had never encountered. He showed them what he'd learned, that loyalty enforced through addiction wasn't loyalty at all. That their founders' promised order was just another cage. That they could choose. One by one, the Jem'Hadar lowered their weapons. Impossible, the female changeling breathed. The Jem'Hadar are genetically programmed for obedience. Programming can be overwritten, Revan said. Free will is stronger than genetics when given the chance to exist. He turned to address the entire bridge, his voice carrying through the ship's comm system to every Dominion vessel in the fleet. I am Revan. I was Jedi and Sith. I was conqueror and redeemed. I have been mind-wiped, rebuilt, and broken more times than your Vorta have been cloned. And I learned something through all of it. Control is an illusion. The moment you think you've imposed perfect order, reality finds a way to introduce chaos. The universe wants variety, wants choice, wants the unpredictable collision of free wills creating something new. The changeling liquefied in rage, flowing toward him. But Revan didn't move. He simply was, his presence so fundamentally chaotic that her ordered form couldn't maintain cohesion near him. She splashed against an invisible barrier of probability and retreated, reforming with difficulty. You're dying, she observed with satisfaction. I can sense it. Whatever power sustains you is consuming you from within. Yes, Revan agreed. But I'll last long enough. Long enough for what? For this. He reached into the ship's computer core with his transformed abilities, downloading every tactical database, every strategic plan, every piece of intelligence the Dominion had gathered. Then he transmitted it in a massive data burst to Deep Space Nine. Captain Sisko now knows everything, Revan said. Your fleet positions, your supply lines, your strategic objectives, your weaknesses. The war just changed. The changeling's scream was inhuman. You've destroyed years of planning. I've introduced a variable you can't control, Revan corrected. The rest is up to people who understand that winning matters less than how you win. His vision was darkening now, his neural pathways burning out one by one. The prophet's gift was ending, his consciousness fragmenting across too many possibilities to sustain coherence. Revan to Deep Space Nine. He managed to transmit. Tell Captain Sisko, he was right. Principles matter more than victory. Even when victory is all you want. He collapsed, his body finally failing, the power that had sustained him evaporating like morning mist. Revan woke to soft light and the gentle hum of medical equipment. For a moment, he thought he was back in the Jedi Temple's healing chambers, recovering from some training accident. Then memory returned, the wormhole, the prophets, The Dominion fleet, his body burning itself to ash, channeling impossible power. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly alive. Easy. Dr. Bashir's voice came from nearby. You've been unconscious for 5 days. Your neural pathways were 90% destroyed. By every medical standard I understand, you should be dead or vegetative. Revan tried to sit up, found he could barely move. His body felt distant, disconnected, as if he were operating it through layers of interference. What happened? He managed, his voice rough. After you transmitted that data burst, you collapsed on the Dominion flagship. Bashir explained, helping him to a semi-reclined position. The Jem'Hadar you'd freed, the ones you showed could choose. They protected your body from the female changeling. Held her off long enough for us to beam you directly to the infirmary. The fleet? Retreated. Captain Sisko's voice answered. The captain stood in the doorway, looking exhausted but intact. Your demonstration convinced them that you were exactly what they feared, an uncontrollable variable. The female changeling ordered withdrawal rather than risk more exposure to whatever you'd become. And the station? Damaged but standing, Sisko replied. Starfleet reinforcements arrived 4 hours after the Dominion retreat. We lost 3 ships in skirmishes, 47 crew members. Far fewer than the thousands projected if they'd committed fully to assault. Revan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of those 47 deaths. Not his fault directly, but consequences of his presence nonetheless. The intelligence I transmitted? Genuine, Dax said, entering with the PADD containing data streams. Dominion tactical databases, strategic projections, supply line coordinates. Starfleet Command is calling it the most significant intelligence coup of the war. We know where their shipyards are, where their clone facilities operate, which sectors they're planning to invade next. Knowledge that will save countless lives, Kira added from behind Sisko. Your sacrifice changed the entire strategic picture. Except I didn't sacrifice myself, Revan observed. I'm still here. How? Bashir exchanged glances with Sisko before answering. The prophets. After you collapsed, Captain Sisko entered the wormhole, again, and demanded answers. They told him that you'd fulfilled your purpose, proving that even their non-linear existence could coexist with linear beings, that chaos and order weren't incompatible but complementary. As a reward, they stabilized you. Stabilized? Revan tested his limbs, feeling the wrongness of his neural connections. I can barely move. They repaired the catastrophic damage, Bashir explained. But they couldn't restore what was burned away. Your brain has been rewired, reorganized along principles that frankly shouldn't work but do. You're alive and conscious, but my connection to the Force is gone, Revan finished. He could feel the absence, the terrible silence where power once flowed, where the living universe once sang in his consciousness. Completely? I can't detect any of the subspace distortions your neural activity previously generated, Bashir confirmed gently. Whatever abilities you had, whatever made you special in your universe, it's gone. You're human now. Just human. Just human. After decades as one of the most powerful Force users in the galaxy, after being Jedi Master and Sith Lord, after wielding power that could reshape civilizations, he was now simply a man. Mortal, limited, ordinary. He should have felt devastated. Instead, he felt light. How do you feel about that? Bashir asked, his genetically enhanced empathy detecting something unexpected in Revan's biometrics. Relief, Revan admitted, surprising himself with the truth. The Force was my gift and my curse. It let me see too much, do too much, become too much. Without it, maybe I can finally be just me. Whoever that is. The question is, what do you do now? Sisko asked. Starfleet Command wants to debrief you extensively about your universe's military tactics. Section 31 hasn't given up trying to recruit you. And the Bajoran government has expressed interest in you remaining on the station as a consultant. Your tactical recommendations during the crisis impressed a lot of people. Revan considered his options. Return to his galaxy? The prophets had made clear they couldn't send him back. His arrival was one way, the wound in reality sealed. Join Starfleet formally? He'd spent too much of his life in military hierarchies to relish entering another. Work for Section 31? That path led only to becoming what he'd rejected. I'd like to stay on Deep Space Nine, he said finally. As a civilian consultant, if Captain Sisko will have me. No rank, no official capacity, just someone who knows war well enough to help prevent it when possible and win it when necessary. Without your powers, Kira pointed out. You're just a tactician. We have plenty of those. True, Revan acknowledged. But I'm a tactician who's fought wars across an entire galaxy, who's been both conqueror and redeemed, who understands what victory costs when you lose yourself achieving it. That perspective might be worth something, even without force abilities. Sisko studied him for a long moment. You realize the Dominion still wants you dead? The female changeling doesn't forgive humiliation. You'll be a target as long as you're alive. I've been a target my entire life, Revan replied. At least here, I'm choosing what I'm a target for. Then welcome to Deep Space Nine, civilian consultant Revan, Sisko said, extending his hand. We'll make it official once you can actually stand without assistance. Over the following weeks, Revan recovered slowly. His motor functions returned gradually, his rewired brain learning to operate a body without force enhancement. He walked the promenade like any other station resident, ate at Quark's bar, attended tactical briefings in an advisory capacity. The mask stayed in his quarters. A relic of who he'd been, unnecessary for who he was becoming. The Jem'Hadar soldiers he'd freed from genetic programming, 17 in total, had requested asylum with the Federation. Starfleet was studying them cautiously, trying to understand if freedom from the Founder's control was permanent or temporary. Revan visited them regularly, teaching them what it meant to make choices, to live without masters. Why do you help us? One asked during a session. We are your enemy's soldiers. You were, Revan corrected. Now you're people trying to figure out who you are without someone else's programming. I understand that journey better than anyone. Section 31 attempted recruitment twice more. Luther Sloan appeared in Revan's quarters one night, offering positions of increasing authority and autonomy. Revan declined each time, politely but firmly. You're wasting your potential, Sloan argued during his final attempt. I'm using it exactly as I choose, Revan replied. That's the difference between us. You think potential is something to be maximized, optimized, exploited. I think it's something to be chosen, directed by individual will rather than utilitarian calculation. We'll never agree. Sloan smiled thinly. You'll change your mind when the Dominion pushes deeper into Federation space. When the casualties mount and the easy answers stop working. We'll talk again then. But Revan doubted it. He'd walked the path of necessary evils before, had justified atrocities in the name of greater goods. That path led only to darkness wearing the mask of pragmatism. 3 months after the Dominion retreat, Revan stood in Sisko's office reviewing tactical projections when an alert chimed. Dax's voice came over the comm. Captain, the wormhole's opening. Single vessel emerging, configuration unknown. They rushed to ops to find the view screen displaying a small craft that made Revan's heart stop. Sleek lines, familiar silhouette, technology that shouldn't exist in this universe. A ship from his galaxy. Impossible, he breathed. The prophets said the wound was sealed. Apparently they were wrong, Dax reported, her fingers flying across controls. Or something changed. I'm reading another massive subspace distortion in the wormhole, similar to what we detected when you arrived. Captain, something else is coming through. The wormhole pulsed with energies that made sensors scream warnings. Then another ship emerged, larger, more massive, ancient design that Revan recognized with growing dread. A Sith interdictor cruiser. From his era, from his war, from everything he tried to leave behind. Captain Sisko. A voice transmitted from the larger vessel, modulated through a vocabulator but unmistakable to anyone who known the man. "This is Darth Malak. I believe you have something that belongs to me." Revan felt the universe shift beneath his feet once more. He'd thought his story in this galaxy was ending, settling into quiet redemption and peaceful consultation. But the past, as always, had found him. "Revan," Sisko said quietly. "Who is Darth Malak?" "My former apprentice," Revan replied, old pain and older guilt rising like bile. "My friend who I corrupted to the dark side. The man who betrayed me, took my empire, and became everything I feared becoming. He's here because of me." "And the smaller ship?" Revan studied its configuration, recognition blooming with desperate hope. "That's Bastila's starfighter. She was a Jedi who helped redeem me. If she's here—" He didn't finish the thought, didn't dare hope. The smaller craft requested docking permission, transmitted in Basic that the universal translators struggled with. Sisko looked at Revan, saw the conflict in his face, and made the decision. "Grant docking permission to the fighter," he commanded. "The larger vessel remains at extreme range under full weapons lock. Revan, it seems your past has caught up with your present." "It always does," Revan replied, watching the starfighter approach. "The question is whether it destroys us or saves us." As the fighter docked, as Malak's massive cruiser held position like a predator waiting, as Deep Space Nine prepared for possibilities no one could predict, Revan understood something fundamental. Redemption wasn't a destination but a journey, and his was far from over. He'd come to this universe seeking nothing, expecting to die in service of people he barely knew, fighting a war that wasn't his own. Instead, he'd found purpose, community, and the chance to face the darkness he'd created one more time, not with Force powers or Sith authority, but simply as a man trying to be better than he was. Whatever came next, he would face it without masks, without powers, without the certainty that had once defined him. He would face it as Revan, neither Jedi nor Sith, neither conqueror nor weapon, just a man choosing moment by moment who he would be. And perhaps, just perhaps, that would be enough. The airlocks cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and Bastila Shan stepped onto Deep Space Nine. She wore her traditional Jedi robes, her double-bladed lightsaber at her hip, her expression carrying the same fierce determination Revan remembered from a lifetime ago. But there was something else in her eyes now, weariness, urgency, and relief that bordered on desperation. "Revan," she breathed, seeing him standing there. Without hesitation, she crossed the distance between them and embraced him, not as a Jedi maintaining emotional distance, but as someone who'd feared never seeing him again. "You're alive. When the Star Forge collapsed and you vanished, when I felt the Force itself tear around you, I thought you were gone forever." "I was," Revan replied quietly, returning the embrace with the limited strength his rewired body allowed. "I fell through a wound in reality. The prophets caught me, brought me here. This isn't our galaxy, Bastila. This is somewhere else entirely." She pulled back, studying him with Force-sensitive perception before her eyes widened with shock. "Your connection to the Force. Revan, I can barely sense you." "What happened?" "Long story," he said. "But first, Malak. How is he here? Why?" Bastila's expression darkened. The Starforge's destruction created a chain reaction through the dark side nexus you'd built. Reality fractured, opened pathways between dimensions. Malak found one, pursued it, convinced you'd escape through it to rebuild your power somewhere beyond his reach. I followed because... She hesitated. Because I couldn't let him hurt you again. Because despite everything, despite the Jedi Council's warnings, I needed to know you were truly safe. Captain Sisko stepped forward. "I'm Captain Benjamin Sisko, commander of this station. And I need to understand the situation clearly. The massive warship holding position outside my station, is it hostile?" "Extremely," Bastila confirmed. "Darth Malak was Revan's apprentice during his fall to darkness. When Revan tried to return to the light, Malak betrayed him, seized his Sith Empire, and has spent years consolidating power through terror and genocide. He's one of the most dangerous Force users alive, commanding technology and armies that could devastate entire sectors. Wonderful, Chief O'Brien muttered. Just what we needed, another unstoppable threat while fighting the Dominion. Actually, Revan said slowly, an idea forming. Malak's arrival might be exactly what we need. Not as ally, but as demonstration. Explain, Sisko commanded. The Dominion believes order can be imposed through superior force and genetic control, Revan outlined. Malak represents pure conquest through dark side domination, another form of tyranny through power. The Federation stands between them, proving that cooperation and choice can resist both extremes. He turned to Sisko. What if we showed them that? All of them, simultaneously? You want to turn this into an object lesson? Kira asked incredulously. I want to give the Dominion's founders something to think about, Revan corrected. They retreated because I proved chaos could disrupt their order. Imagine their reaction when they see two separate tyrannical forces, one from another universe, one from this one, both failing to control a single station that operates on principles either can comprehend. Dax's eyes lit with understanding. You want to invite the Dominion to observe. Turn Malak's attack into a public demonstration of why their philosophy fails. That's insane, Odo protested. We'd be fighting on two fronts. We'd be letting our enemies destroy each other while we survive in the middle, Revan replied. Classic tactical triangulation. Malak wants me. The Dominion wants to eliminate me as a variable. The Federation wants both to leave. Everyone gets to fight for what they want, but only one side's philosophy actually sustains itself. Sisko considered this for a long moment. It's risky. If Malak and the Dominion ally against us, they won't. Bastila interjected. The Sith don't ally, they dominate or destroy. Malak would see the Dominion as competition for control, not potential partners. And the female changeling wouldn't share power with a solid who wields mystical abilities she can't assimilate, Revan added. They'll fight each other as much as they fight us. The comm system crackled. Deep Space Nine, this is Darth Malak. Surrender Revan immediately, or I will demonstrate what true power means. You have 1 hour. Simultaneously, another transmission arrived, the female changeling's liquid voice. Captain Sisko, sensors indicate another vessel of unknown origin threatening your station. The Dominion offers assistance in exchange for the warrior Revan. Your enemies multiply. Choose wisely. Sisko looked at Revan, at Bastila, at his assembled crew. Everyone votes. Do we stand alone, negotiate, or try Revan's gambit? One by one, they answered. Kira voted to fight. Dax supported the gambit. O'Brien reluctantly agreed with Revan's plan. Bashir abstained, torn between medical ethics and tactical necessity. Odo voted to negotiate with the Dominion, old loyalties to his people dying hard despite everything. Then we try it, Sisko decided. Revan's plan, with modifications. We invite both forces to observe each other, let them see the choice we represent, and survive through being too valuable to destroy and too principled to corrupt. What followed was the strangest standoff in Federation history. 3 forces in uneasy tension, the Dominion fleet maintaining distance, Malak's Sith cruiser holding position, and Deep Space Nine standing between them broadcasting a simple message. This station operates on principles of cooperation, choice, and mutual benefit. All parties are invited to observe how such principles resist both genetic tyranny and mystical domination. Hostilities will be met with defense, but cooperation will be rewarded with knowledge. Malak attacked first, his Sith cruiser launching fighters while he himself transmitted a message of pure contempt. The Dominion watched, analyzing, as Deep Space Nine's defenses, coordinated by Revan's tactical mind despite his lost powers, proved effective against dark side enhanced warriors. Then the Dominion made their move, testing the station's response to their calculated assault patterns. Malak turned his attention to them, seeing competitors for conquest, and the two forces engaged each other while the station defended against both. The battle lasted 6 hours. In the end, either side achieved their objective. Malak withdrew, his ship damaged, his pride wounded, transmitting a final message. "This isn't over, Revan. I'll find you again in this galaxy or any other." The Dominion fleet pulled back as well, the female changeling's last words chilling in their analytical precision. "You've demonstrated that chaos has tactical applications. This data will be incorporated into future strategies. But understand, the Dominion learns, adapts, evolves. Your resistance is temporary mathematics, not permanent victory." When the shooting stopped, Deep Space Nine stood intact, damaged, exhausted, but unbroken. Bastila remained on the station, her presence opening possibilities Revan had thought lost forever. Together, Jedi and former Sith, Force-sensitive and Force-dead, they began teaching the Federation about their galaxy, offering knowledge that might one day allow Starfleet to defend against dark side users if Malak returned. But more importantly, they taught each other. Bastila learned about a universe where mysticism bowed to science, where gods could be questioned and tyranny resisted through cooperation rather than power. Revan learned that losing the Force didn't mean losing purpose, that redemption was daily choice rather than grand gesture. Months later, as Revan stood on the promenade watching traders from a dozen species negotiate and cooperate, he understood what the prophets had known all along. He hadn't been brought here to fight wars or wield power. He'd been brought here to witness, and participate in, a different way of being. A galaxy where strength came not from force abilities or genetic superiority, but from choosing freely to stand together against the darkness. His story wasn't over. Malak would return eventually. The Dominion War continued grinding through sectors. New threats would emerge, new choices demand response. But for the first time since falling to the dark side decades ago, Revan felt something he thought lost forever: hope. Not hope for easy answers or quick victories. Hope that even in the darkest times, even when cut off from power and certainty, individuals could choose to be better than their circumstances demanded. That redemption was possible not despite weakness, but because of it. That the universe, any universe, rewarded those who chose principle over expedience, community over conquest, compassion over control. He was no longer the legendary Revan, prodigal knight, Dark Lord, savior of the Republic. He was simply Revan. A man far from home, learning to live without the powers that had defined him, finding purpose in helping others navigate the terrible choices war demanded. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was the greatest power of all. Live long and prosper. Hit that subscribe button for more interesting stories. Thank you for watching.